Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful. Today she is poisoning your son. Bill's furious discovery shocks hospital and reveals Grace's plot. Bill Spencer's shocking expose of Grace's deadly deception. The continuous, antiseptic beep of the cardiac monitor was a metronome counting down Liam Spencer's fragile existence, with each pulse representing a small win over the carnage caused by Luna's bullet. Bill Spencer had not left his son's bedside in days, a sentinel carved of granite and father horror. His typical swagger had been replaced by a haggard determination, his eyes bloodshot and focused on every flicker on the machines, every small alteration in Liam's unsettlingly pale face. The air in the private ICU room was thick with the perfume of antiseptic and silent fear, the memory of the wedding slaughter a fresh wound beneath the surface calm. Hope was a trembling ghost on the other side of the bed, her hand grasping Liam's lifeless one, her tiredness mirroring Bill's, but accompanied by a different kind of anxiety, the terror of her shattered husband's unknown journey ahead. The nurses moved with quiet efficiency, their calm professionalism providing a thin veneer over the unit's underlying anxiety. Among them, Grace, Liam's primary day nurse, exuded calm expertise. Her touch was delicate, and her voice was a low, soothing murmur as she checked vitals, changed 4 lines, and took readings. She was the epitome of dedicated care, a calming presence in the nightmare. However, something primitive, a predator's instinct trained in corporate boardrooms and backstreet dealings, began to itch beneath Bill's skin whenever Grace was there. It began gradually, almost imperceptibly. Bill hesitated somewhat when he asked a specific inquiry about Liam's most recent blood panel. When Dr. Finn ordered an unexpected test to study Liam's puzzlingly slow clotting times, her eyes flickered briefly, swiftly replaced by professional worry. Bill noticed her standing just a little too long by the 4-pump, her fingers hovering near the buttons while she thought no one was looking. Bill rejected it at first as paranoia, the logical hypervigilance of a father whose son had previously been abducted. But the oddities remained. Liam's recuperation, which had looked promising after the major operation, had halted. Despite the finest efforts and cutting-edge treatments, he remained completely unconscious, with slow vital signs. Finn, smart and dedicated, was visibly disturbed, muttering about unexplained metabolic suppression and resistance to standard stimulants. Bill, a man who trusted his instincts more than any spreadsheet, felt the cold finger of mistrust trace his spine. Grace was always present, helpful, and the first to provide reassurance, but Liam wasn't better. Coincidence? Bill Spencer did not believe in coincidences. He believed in enemies. He believed in sabotage. Bill became a rogue investigator, driven by a colder rage than he'd felt during a hostile takeover. He circumvented hospital rules and solicited favors from contacts who operated much beyond legal restrictions. He ordered secret, duplicate blood draws samples obtained not by Grace, but by a trusted, off-duty nurse sneaked in under Bill's supervision. He had them tested not only at the hospital lab, but also at a private, high-security toxicology institution famed for its confidentiality and cutting-edge detection skills. He searched over the visitation logs, cross-referencing them with Grace's shifts, looking for trends and accomplices. He examined security tape frame by frame, his eyes narrowing to slits, scrutinizing Grace's motions with the zeal of a hawk stalking prey. He noticed the careful way she handled the 4 bags, the almost ritualistic care she took, and the small shield her body occasionally provided between the line and the room's camera view for a few seconds. He noticed her pocket a small, unmarked vial once, as swift as a viper's sting, when she thought the camera was concealed by a passing orderly. The vial appeared to be pharmaceutical, or generic. Innocuous. To anyone else. To Bill, it was a smoking gun that he could not yet prove. The wait for the tox test results was excruciating, extending hours into eons. Bill paced the corridor outside Liam's door like a caged tiger, his phone a scorching burden in his grasp. Hope observed him, knowing his distress but ascribing it to parental dread. Grace strolled calmly across Liam's chamber, adjusting his pillow and caressing his brow, the embodiment of caring devotion. The discrepancy between her behavior and Bill's increasing assurance was infuriating. Then the phone vibrated. A single encrypted message. Bill retreated to a supply closet, the harsh fluorescent light bleaching his face as he studied the report. His brain was bombarded with clinical language, presence of synthetic insulin analog, Detamir, detected in serum at levels significantly exceeding therapeutic range. Compound exhibits delayed, prolonged hypoglycemic effect. Consistent with deliberate, low-dose administration designed to induce persistent, undetected metabolic suppression and delayed consciousness recovery. Hybrid insulin. It is undetectable on typical hospital screens. Deliberate. Administered to keep his son alive, albeit in a twilight coma. The meticulously constructed barrier that was holding back Bill Spencer's volcanic wrath collapsed. He didn't flee, he erupted from the supply closet. The corridor appeared to blur as he surged towards Liam's chamber, a force of nature fueled by burning rage. He threw the door open with such force that it banged into the wall, sounding like a gunshot in the quiet room. Hope jumped, letting out a gasp. Grace, standing by the four-pole with her hand discreetly near the line port, paused in mid-motion, her calm mask shattering for a microsecond, displaying a flash of pure, surprised panic before she quickly recovered herself. "Mr. Spencer? Is everything?" "Get away from him." Bill's roar shook the windows. He walked across the room in 2 steps, his huge form towering above Grace, his eyes flashing with a deadly intensity that made her flinch back, genuine fear finally replacing the facade. "Bill! What on earth?" Hope exclaimed, rising shakily. Bill ignored her, stabbing Grace with his finger like a lightning bolt. "She is poisoning your son." The words exploded in the little area, shockingly loud and terrifyingly explicit. Hope's palm shot to her mouth, her eyes wide with incredulity, followed by dawning, sickening fear as she gazed from Bill's apoplectic expression to Grace's fast paling one. Nurses outside the door froze. A doctor paused in the middle of his stride, having forgotten his chart. Grace found her voice, wobbly but defiant, and clung to professionalism. "Mr. Spencer, you're clearly distraught. You're hallucinating." "I would never, Liam is my patient, I care for him deeply." "Lies." Bill yelled, smashing his fist down on the bedside table and knocking a plastic cup to the floor. He threw his phone, the toxicology report flashing on the screen, at Dr. Finn, who had raced in, drawn by the commotion. "Detamir. Synthetic insulin. In his bloodstream. At levels that scream sabotage." His voice fell to a guttural howl, vibrating with pure rage as he turned back to Grace. "You sick, twisted monster. You've been dripping poison into his veins while playing Florence Nightingale." The room descended into mayhem. Hope sank back into her chair, sobbing as her world imploded again. Nurses gasped, covering their mouths. Dr. Finn's face became ashen as he perused the paper, his professional astonishment quickly giving way to cold, clinical rage. "Secure that 4-line. Now," he demanded of a nurse, who sprung into action, her hands quivering as she tightened the line. "Get security. Call the cops." Finn's voice was cold. "Run a stat confirmatory blood panel. Toxicology screen specifically for insulin analogs. Now." Grace's poise eventually crumbled. The kind nurse's mask slipped away, revealing terrified eyes and trapped animal panic. "It's not what it looks like. You don't understand." "I was forced," she muttered, backing away as hospital security rushed through the doorway. "Forced?" Bill charged at her, his wrath a palpable presence. "Forced to try and kill my son? To keep him in a coma? Who? Who paid you? Who terrorized you into this?" He was suddenly inches away from her, his breath hot on her face. Was it Sheila? One of her psychotic puppets? "Tell me." His voice cracked as he demanded, the image of Sheila's evil smirk flashing across his memory. Grace flinched, tears flowing down her cheeks, but she clamped her mouth shut and shook her head furiously, a silent appeal mingled with dread. The terror was not limited to Bill or the cops, it was deeper and older. Fear of someone else. Someone had more influence over her than Bill Spencer's rage. Security intervened, dragging Grace away from Bill, who appeared ready to tear her apart with his bare hands. As they restrained her, Bill returned his gaze to Liam, his rage temporarily overwhelmed by a surge of overwhelming guilt and fear. He dropped to his knees beside the bed, his huge, quivering hand covering Liam's chilly one. The pristine chamber, once a haven of healing optimism, now reeked of deception and the cloying stench of the poison Grace had administered with a nurse's delicate touch. The devices continued to beep, but the sounds served as a cruel reminder of the life they were urgently trying to save against an enemy who had infiltrated the very heart of his shelter. Bill Spencer, the titan who conquered nations, felt completely impotent. He discovered the snake in the nest, but the venom had already entered his son's veins. The struggle had not ended, it had simply moved to a minuscule, terrible front within Liam's own body, with the clock ticking against a cunning, invisible killer. The question roared in his soul's silence, had he discovered the conspiracy in time? And an even darker shadow loomed, who was pulling Grace's strings, and what unfathomable price had they asked for this methodical, systematic killing? The hospital was no longer a safe haven, it was a crime scene, and Bill Spencer stood in the center, his son's frail life hanging in the balance, poisoned by the very hands that were supposed to cure. A new mystery doctor has joined B&B, who is giving Liam a second chance at life. The ICU's constant, antiseptic rhythm-sighing ventilators, beeping monitors, quiet, somber voices had become Liam Spencer's oppressive existence. Days bled into nights, leaving only shifting graphs on displays and increasing shadows beneath Hope Logan's eyes. Bill Spencer's shocking revelation of Nurse Grace's insulin poisoning had sent them all into a new circle of torment. While Grace was in detention, her fearful silence protecting her unknown puppet master, the insidious Detamir had already done its harm. Liam's frail systems, ravaged by the gunshot trauma and subsequent sabotage, were shutting down one cell at a time. Dr. Finn's brilliance was running out of steam, transfusions were losing the struggle against decreased bone marrow function, organ support was becoming increasingly desperate, and the light behind Liam's closed eyes appeared to dim noticeably. Hope's faint pleas were like dust motes in a cyclone of misery. Bill's volcanic rage had subsided into a chilly, heavy dread, a helplessness that gnawed at his very soul. The Spencer riches, his tremendous will, and his network of power are all ineffective against the invisible poison that is gradually dimming his son's flame. She arrived in the oppressive sense of impending loss. Unannounced. Unheralded. An oddity that sliced through the hospital's bureaucratic veil like a scalpel. Dr. Evelyn Shaw. Her introduction did not go through official channels, including Finn or the Chief of Staff. The corridor outside Liam's room was the usual tense vigil, Bill pacing like a caged predator, Steffi lending stoic support to Hope, Ridge leaning heavily on a cane, his own rehabilitation secondary to the family problem, and then she was just there. Tall, precisely fitted in a charcoal suit that spoke wealthy anonymity rather than medical authority, her dark hair was severely pushed back, presenting a face that was both striking and unsettlingly cold. High cheekbones, glacial ice-blue eyes that appeared to absorb rather than reflect light. She carried no clipboard, wore no visible ID, and exuded utter, undeniable authority. Mr. Spencer, her voice was low, controlled, and free of expression, but it sliced through the background noise like a laser. Bill spun, immediately furious, his guard up following Grace's treachery. "Who the hell are you? How did you get back here?" Security was supposed to be tight, protocols rigid. Dr. Shaw did not flinch. She answered Bill's look with startling calm. "My name is Dr. Evelyn Shaw. I specialize in regenerative crisis intervention and cellular resuscitation in cases of induced metabolic failure." Her glance moved subtly towards Liam's room. The specificity was unnerving. She knew. She knew about the insulin and the sabotage. "I understand your son's condition is deteriorating despite conventional measures. I believe I can help." Steffi moved forward, her protective instincts heightened. "Help? How? We have the best doctors here." "Dr. Finn." "Dr. Finnegan is excellent," Shaw agreed effortlessly, her tone neither flattering nor disparaging, simply expressing the facts. Excellence sometimes encounters boundaries defined by available technology and sanctioned methodologies. Liam Spencer's case falls outside those boundaries. The detamir has triggered a cascade failure at the mitochondrial level. Standard interventions are palliative, not curative. He may have 48 hours before systemic collapse becomes irreversible. The brutal prognosis, delivered with clinical detachment, sucked the air from the corridor. Hope uttered a little, hurt sound. Bill's jaw clenched. "And you have a magic wand, Doctor? Some experimental fairy dust?" His voice was filled with sarcasm, a reaction to the unsettling realism of her statements. Shaw's lips were touched by a ghost of something, not a smile, but the tiniest acknowledgement of challenge. "Not magic, Mr. Spencer. Highly advanced, proprietary science. My work focuses on targeted mitochondrial reboot and stem cell revitalization protocols designed explicitly for toxin-induced comas and near-fatal metabolic suppression. Think of it as jump-starting the engine at the cellular level." She produced a slim, encrypted tablet from her briefcase, displaying complex, shimmering 3D models of cells, cascading data streams, and graphs showing dramatic recovery. "My success rate in similar scenarios is 87%. Where traditional medicine sees an endpoint, my protocols see a potential inflection point." Hope found her voice, trembling and urgent. "You can save him? You can bring him back? I can offer him a statistically significant chance of recovery where none currently exists," Shaw corrected, her steely glare locked on Hope's. "A chance. Not a guarantee. The procedure is complex, invasive, and carries inherent risks. It requires immediate authorization and absolute control over his care environment for the next 72 hours. My team and I would take over completely." "Take over?" Finn's voice was tight as he emerged from Liam's room, having heard the disturbance. He appeared fatigued, with the strain of the losing battle engraved on his face. "Dr. Shaw, I'm not familiar with your work. This hospital has protocols. We can't simply hand over a critical patient to." "My credentials and research are beyond reproach, Dr. Finnegan," Shaw said, her tone neutral but with an evident edge of steel. "Though much of my work is classified under DARPA-adjacent biorecovery initiatives. Red tape and territorialism are luxuries Liam Spencer no longer possesses. The choice is binary: adhere to your failing protocols and witness his decline, or grant me access and afford him a fighting chance. The window is closing." She tapped her tablet, displaying a real-time, terrifyingly flatlining graph of Liam's cellular metabolic activity. "This trajectory is terminal. My intervention alters it." The weight of her words, the chilling confidence, and the dreadful countdown all combined to create an insurmountable pressure. Bill peered at the graph, the image of his son fading away. Hope grasped Steffi's arm, tears falling softly. Ridge narrowed his eyes, recognizing Shaw's accuracy and might while also perceiving something profoundly unfamiliar beneath the surface. Finn struggled with professional pride, ethics, and the unavoidable reality that he was out of options. "The revelation and the price, why?" Bill asked, his voice raw. "Why come here? Why Liam? What's in it for you?" Suspicion was his first language. Shaw's cold eyes did not waver. "My motivation is irrelevant to the outcome, Mr. Spencer. My interest lies in the scientific challenge and the preservation of viable life where others see only entropy." However, she paused, the first hint of human calculation entering her gaze. "Access to a case this unique, with the sabotage element, provides invaluable data for refining my protocols against adversarial biological agents. Consider it a mutually beneficial transaction. I save your life." It was cold, transactional, and devoid of bedside manner. However, the raw numbers, the dreadful countdown on the screen, and the absolute hopelessness of the alternative made her offer horrifyingly tempting. The mystery deepens, as Bill, Hope, Steffi, and Finn went to a tense, somber meeting room. Shaw stayed in the corridor, a statue of calm in the midst of chaos. Shauna Fulton, lured by the ruckus and her troubled relationship with Bill, approached hesitantly. Shauna's face paled as she took one glimpse at Shaw, recognition blazing in her eyes before being instantly obscured by shock. "Evelyn?" Shauna asked, her voice scarcely audible. Shaw turned her head slowly, her steely gaze fixed on Shauna. There was no warmth in recognition, only a dim, chilly acknowledgement. "Shauna. It's been significant years." The absence of intonation made the words even more odd. "Do you know her?" Steffi said angrily, sensing the unusual tension. Shauna gulped, visibly shaken. "From a long time ago. Vegas. Before everything." Her eyes flew to Bill, a confused mix of dread and caution. "Bill, be careful. She's not like other doctors. The thing she was involved in back then, it was fringe. Dangerous." Shaw did not refute it. "Scientific progress often resides on the fringe, Shauna. What was dangerous speculation decades ago is now validated science. My work saves lives that others abandon." She returned her focus to the conference room door. "Time is their enemy, not my past." The Faustian bargain. There was a heated dispute inside the room. Finn was vehemently opposed. "We don't know her. Classified research? DARPA adjacent? This screams Black Ops bioengineering. The risks are unknown, potentially catastrophic. She could turn Liam into a lab rat." Hope was frantic. "But Finn, he's dying. She has proof. Look at those graphs. 87%. What choice do we have? Watch him fade away for sure." Steffi struggled with logic and commitment to Finn. "Shauna knows her, Bill. She's warning us. What if this is connected? What if Shaw is the puppet master behind Grace?" Bill stood at the window, gazing out at the city, his reflection a mask of agonizing indecision. Shauna's warning reverberated. Shaw's steely brilliance frightened him. The sight of Liam, quiet and pale, and the remembrance of his small hand as a youngster, overshadowed everything else. He turned and met Hope's yearning eyes. He saw not only Hope, but Will, in need of his father. He recognized his own failing to shield his son from the bullet and the poison. He only saw the abyss. "Get her," Bill growled, the words wrenched from his mouth. "Get Shaw. Tell her, she has her 72 hours. But if anything happens to my son because of her voodoo science." He left the threat hanging, enormous and deadly. Dr. Evelyn Shaw's takeover was rapid and decisive. Liam's room was transformed into an enclosed biocontainment zone in less than an hour. Her team arrived, silent and efficient in unmarked biosafety suits, bringing in equipment that appeared to belong on a starship or in a sci-fi thriller, humming bioreactors, complicated filtration systems, and scanners emitting unknown energy signatures. Finn was forbidden, with only restricted remote surveillance under Shaw's stringent supervision. His irritation was evident. Hope was given brief, supervised visits, and her heart broke when she saw Liam enclosed in a translucent pod, bathed in a soothing, pulsating blue light, and connected to machinery Shaw refused to explain. Shaw herself was a constant, unsettling presence, watching holographic monitors that flashed cascades of DNA sequences and mitochondrial activity maps, her expression unreadable. The procedure, called Project Lazarus in Shaw's chillingly appropriate internal logs, and briefly interrupted by a dubious tech working with Finn, began. It involved a combination of targeted nanotech vectors designed to seek out and neutralize residual detamere metabolites, followed by an infusion of highly specialized, bioengineered stem cells, the origin of which Shaw cryptically referred to as viable somatic reserves. The final phase involved pulsed electromagnetic fields calibrated to specific mitochondrial frequencies, a process Shaw described as re-establishing cellular resonance. The unseen observer and the lingering question, Sheila Carter watched from a beautiful penthouse high above the hospital, paid for with untraceable monies. Not with binoculars, but with a sophisticated hack into the hospital's security feeds, specifically the corridor outside Liam's room and the few camera views Shaw had not disabled inside. Sheila's lips curved into a predatory smirk as she saw the pandemonium generated by Shaw's entrance, as well as the dread and divide among the Forresters and Logans. She witnessed Bill's anguish, Hope's despair, and Finn's impotent rage. Shaw's participation was unexpected, a wild card. However, Sheila was drawn to pandemonium. She was particularly interested in Shauna Fulton's terrified recognition. What a twisted web is this? Sheila mused, her mind already weaving fresh stories. Shaw's science was fascinating and disturbing. What are the potential consequences of Liam's resurrection? What kind of leverage could this provide? Sheila observed not only a medical drama, but a new world of manipulation emerging. The ghost doctor had arrived, promising a second shot at life, but her presence felt more like the introduction of a new, more sophisticated type of poison. Who was Dr. Evelyn Shaw, truly? A savior using a crisis for data? A weapon from someone's dark past? Or a foreshadowing of something considerably more unnatural? The machinery hummed, the blue light pulsed around Liam, and the mystery grew deeper and more harmful than the pollutants they hoped to eliminate. Liam's second shot at life was dawning, but it was bathed in the cold, unsure light of science, which seemed chillingly similar to playing God.